dearest INFJ entrepreneur friends. Welcome back to another video. We are in studio again shooting today. So I thought I would jump in to record something for you guys as well. In this video, we are going to talk about silence. And the reason we're going to talk about silence is very simply because this has been coming through for me this past week. I want to give you a little bit of a story and how can you use silence for your own advantage as an INFJ entrepreneur. Now, what we know is that the INFJs, they are quietly leading. So quiet leadership for us is our lifeblood of existence. And many of us are not the most loudest in the room. And I think one of the charms of the INFJs are that fact that we like to observe and we would like to just fill the room first before we say anything. I think observational energy is pretty much something we would like to embody a lot. And we may not be, again, super loud. We may not be talking a lot, except when we are excited about something that we can really express. But we are not leading in a way that is always the loudest in the room. And I do believe there's a lot of power in that. And especially now, the less noise you create, the more what you say has gravity. And I think, especially on social media, when there is a lot of people constantly pumping out and creating noise, it might be tempting for you to do the same and to be always thinking about putting something out there just for the sake of putting something out there. But I do believe that for us is not sustainable because we can't always push ourselves to just produce for the sake of producing just to be visible. I do have a visibility challenge for you that we're going to start from September, and I'll talk more about that. But this visibility challenge is more of a thinking about what you do and expressing what you do more so than just creating noise. So the prompts behind that will help you think and reflect before you ever start putting out any content. So I think whenever we can slow down to think about what it is that we want to say, we can speak with more gravity and intention and precision. And I think many times when we are focusing on how can I express myself with more intention and gravity and talk about what matters, I think that would ultimately be you becoming a person that when you speak, people are listening because you're not just contributing for the sake of contributing, but you're contributing because what you're putting out there has depth, has gravity, and you thought about is that you want to say first. So I think if we can slow that process down and think about what we're going to say first, it's going to ultimately help us reach new levels of our self expression. Now, in terms of silence, what I had noticed is that, especially because I'm not wired, like we're not wired the same way as most people, that when we are building something in our businesses and we're not quite sure of ourselves, we tend to just express and speak more than listen. And I think what has became very clear to me is that as I was growing and developing, people filling this space with noise, even in my personal friendships, has become something that started to annoy me. Just went to England to see my sister there. And I also brought my mom because she wanted to visit her and she doesn't want to travel by herself. And I remember during that trip, what I have felt was a lot of my mom compulsively talking. So it's not just about her, being more expressive and talking, but many times I felt like for her, it's more like an autopilot than giving consideration of whether or not right now we need to speak. And I remember just being on the flight, and usually I like to put my headphones on and maybe just like turn inwards to recharge. I think airports can sometimes be very hectic, especially on our energies. So I just thought, I need to just decompress. I need to just be in my space. And I constantly caught her wanting to talk to me, not being able to read nonverbal cues of me looking at a book and so I can't hear her. And I was finding myself frustrated because I is something that I've reminded to the times where even as children, I think because that we're not inserting ourselves into like dominating people so much that we often get talked over or our boundaries are not recognized so much. And I think it was especially triggering with my mom because she kind of knows how I am growing up, and I got this nickname from my family, like a ferret. Ferrets, they live in the attics of the house. It basically symbolizes that I just basically resurface every now and then. And I mostly like to be in my own space and be very happy, left alone in that. So my family kind of like always jokingly says that about me. But in this scenario, like my mom could have known better, right? Like you could argue that maybe when it's your own family member, or maybe it's a friend who seems to not feeling that maybe you are a bit more exhausted today, or you don't have receptibility to listen that deeply or be present with them for that long, they overstay your welcome. And I think that happens to us a lot, especially because people use us for therapy all the time. And we're very insightful, but sometimes people cannot sense that they're being too much because that's how they are thinking. But it can get triggering for us, especially if we are more sensitive to our own boundaries. And I think we might take this the wrong way if we're not thinking about how to communicate that. And I also want to a little bit go about first of all, how do we okay with silence? I think it's about recognizing that when people are truly caring about what you have to say and they respect you, they don't have to speak a lot for them to earn that respect, because every time you speak, it's gonna be from inside. That's the first thing that I want you to understand. Whenever you are in a company of someone who is speaking more and they are processing in a way, what you can do is gently put the boundary down and signal with words that right now you need to be in silence and you need to be in your own world for you to recharge. And I think many times, and this is the difficulty of this, especially if you are the type of person who needs to be in silence to just be recharging, is that if you are inserting that in a way that it's not clear, it's not about the person, they might be taking it personally. They might think as this is a rejection of them and you just don't want to hang out with them, or you think they are annoying, which they are annoying to you, but it's not because they are bad. It's because they might lack the awareness that this is not something you constantly need in your life. It's different when the conversation is intellectually stimulating and you're both very passionate about the topic. But even then, I think we can reach a point where it's just like, okay, it was great seeing you. Like, I can't wait. Like, you knowing when to stop and knowing when to be like, this is perfect. Like, instead of letting the conversation flow die and trying to force it back, you kind of develop, oh, that this was it. Like, let's not force this. Like, this was perfect. Let's not try to overextend this interaction longer than it should be. So I think recognizing that and calling that out is also going to be very magnetic in the way you do that. So not worrying about how people think and being a little bit more intentional about you needing space. So I want to give you a couple of tips for me that if you have a friend like that who likes noise more than silence and perhaps feels a bit comfortable with feeling the silence and uncomfortable with just being, what has helped me is to be very specific and make sure that they don't feel personally rejected. So what you can do in the situations is you can let them know that preemptively, like before you travel, or you're going to be traveling, like me and my mom, or before you go somewhere, you can say, hey, I will need about 30 minutes of silence. I'm going to put my headphones in and I will need about 30 minutes of silence to really decompress and just to recharge myself. But after that, we can chat or you can express like what that bond is specific. Because what I have found is not many people can understand like you reading a book or you putting the headphones on. Like not many people can take that as oh yeah, she's busy. And even if you say, "Oh, I'm exhausted right now. I need to rest." Like I found that to not be something that stops people like my mom, for example, from interacting with me. Like I could be like, "Mom, I'm very exhausted," to just relax, and I close my eyes and she would still be talking. I think that's why saying that out loud, that right now you need silence and peace and quiet, is going to help you maintain that balance in your relationships with the people and your friendships as well. One other thing that I think is very INFJ as well, and I did a video about this before, about about inserting our boundaries and feeling a little bit dysregulated by the fact that we have to do it. Like we really need to be like, okay, like this is it. Like you need to kind of be sharp and say your boundaries, and you might feel a little bit like, okay, maybe I was too harsh. Like maybe the person is like their feelings are hurt. Like we love to keep peace and harmony in our relationships and dynamics. So it's sometimes hard for us to be a bit more firm with them. But ultimately, what we can teach people is how to relate to us. You know, it's not about being an asshole. It's about how can I teach people the way I like to be interacted and when I like to be interacted with. So I hope this was helpful. Let me recap some of the things that we talked about in this video. The first thing we talked about in this video is that the INFJs like to be recharging in silence, and we appreciate silence and observation more. And the more mature we get, the more we are okay with letting the silence speak sometimes instead of trying to fill the void with noise all the time, to just be sitting with silence and speak when you have something to say, or hold your words close to yourself until it's ready for them to let them go and release them. They will hold much more gravity than if you are just creating noise just to stay relevant in terms of your friendships, relationships, and even in business, even in your social media posts and expressions. The more you speak with intentionality, precision, and the more it has gravity, the more people can feel you. And in interpersonal relationships, what you will experience is that many times you being an INFJ means that you need more time to recharge and relax. And many times people are expressing themselves and relating in different ways than you do, especially if the topics that they are expressing are not really well thought out. Many people speak from autopilot and not slow down enough to think about what they're going to say and why they feel this constant urge to fill the void or the silence with noise. But it's not your job to be the receiving end of that. And it's your responsibility to teach people how to relate to you better and draw those boundaries very, very clearly. So it's very important for you to educate people on how to relate to you so you can maintain balance in your relationships. So that's all. There is the 30-day visibility challenge that we're going to do from September. I'm going to put the link in the description of this video so you can register. You can start the challenge at any day. So basically, when you sign up, you will receive the daily prompts for you to think about what you're going to say. And all I want you guys to do is to make it a daily practice to actively and intentionally express yourself. So it's not just going to be about just creating more noise. It's going to be having more gravity and intentionality in the way you do it. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and I'll see you guys very soon.